is Hollywood actually starting to push the narrative to make disclosure happen. So this is something I've been talking about for quite a while. I've been an advocate since I've been covering this over the last 3 years about how government pushing and people inside of the government was important. And after all the runaround and the brick walls that people land in, regardless of the White House tweeting out that files are going to be disclosed or not, I just have gotten to a place where I don't trust it. And I quote all of the time, a whistleblower, Matt Brown, had said that it's probably going to come from civilians and things of that nature. And one of the things that I thought would happen and make sense to happen was if it started to come from the Hollywood circles, because a lot of times in movies and consultants and other things, the people that are working on it, I always use the example, and I've used this before, is like The Sopranos, right? When, if you're fans of The Sopranos, Christopher Moltisanti was advising and working on a script with a Hollywood guy, and he would tell stories about things that really happened inside the mafia, and then that guy would take those stories but make them part of the movie itself. So sure, it happened, but it was fictional. So did it really happen? And that's the kind of stuff that I think, whether Spielberg was being advised on, he was being advised. He had both Jacques Vallée and he had Hynek on Close Encounters. So that's the type of things I think could happen inside of Hollywood. Now, one of the things that, and I've mentioned this in the past as well, but to reiterate for that, what the story is that we're going to talk about in a second, there have been really great documentaries over on the UAP topic over the last couple of years, and talked about James Fox's documentaries and how they have brought a lot of people into the space and a lot of different things that he's done, from Moment of Contact, The Phenomenon, and other things. There's been Darcy Weir has done a ton of really good ones. There's been tons of documentaries. The one that I saw that took me into this is the National Geographic one of UFOs Exploring the Unknown. It was like a 6-part series, something that I saw. There's been tons of ones that have been on out there. Now, Steven Spielberg has produced one of those on Netflix not too long ago. Boardwalk Pictures was also part of that. And that one got some coverage because Spielberg's name was attached to it, but it was the Dan Farah Age of Disclosure documentary that South by Southwest last year made a lot of waves. Took a while for the movie to come out, finally did, and then the interviews started coming. What I said after that was, like, because of this circle that is all interconnected, Dan Farah worked with Steven Spielberg on Ready Player One, and then the next movie after is the Disclosure Day. Then after that will be the Joseph Kaczynski movie with David Grush as an advisor. Then also we've got other potential movies with Colin Trevorrow and other people. So it is interesting that these movies are coming out. And the reason I said that Spielberg, when they announced he was doing a movie, I said, I want to see what kind of movie he's going to do. Is it going to be more so in the vein of War of the Worlds, or is it going to be something closer to The Post? Have you seen those movies? That's the type of thing that I want to see him really dive into, is things that really kind of happened, or things that, because I said he was on Colbert not too long ago, and I said he's very knowledgeable in what's happening in the government with these things. It's not just, I want to make an alien movie today. There's more to it. And he says as much in this interview from South by Southwest this year. I want to play his comments, and then we'll discuss what he says afterwards. So check it out. Thanks to UAP James for clipping this out.
What reinvigorated me in wanting to make the first UFO movie I've made in 50 years, because it'll be almost 50 years since Close Encounters was released in '77, was when the New York Times came out in 2017. And it was an article written by Helene Cooper and Rosenthal and, I believe, Leslie Keane. And it was an article about the Navy pilot who was flying a Navy FA-18F fighter jet off the Nimitz, the aircraft carrier Nimitz, and had seen something on his FLIR and had essentially recorded it and basically reported it. And the New York Times, and I believe it might have been, I forgot who leaked it to the Times, but it was leaked to the New York Times, and they wrote this very serious article about is there a cover-up? Has the government or the military, Air Force, the Navy been covering this up? And it was just a fascinating story, and it completely rekindled my interest in this subject matter. And then, of course, there was a subcommittee hearing in 2023, which some of you might have seen, with three former, one person worked in intelligence, one was a Navy pilot, and two were in the military. And it was a fascinating Q&A under oath, by the way. And so my feeling right now is this: I don't have any information exclusive to me that all of you here, if you read about this and have seen the plethora of documentaries about this dating back to 2018, where these documentaries really started to roll out, I don't know any more than any of you do. But I have a very strong, sneaking suspicion that we are not alone here on Earth right now.
All right, this is a really big thing, and I'll tell you why it is. You might just think, okay, well, that's just Steven Spielberg saying things to promote his movie and getting interest in his movie alone. You're not wrong for saying that if that's what you're saying. But the important thing to realize here, if you're listening to this, and chances are if you're listening to this on my channel, you're pretty well versed in the topic. You understand, and you've heard of these things, and you know what he's talking about, and you're like, it's not that big of a deal. This is a major deal because this is not the last time he's going to be telling this story about how he got involved. He will be talking about this because he's Steven Spielberg promoting a new movie. He will be talking about the fact that it doesn't just come from fiction. It comes from reality in the hearings, in what the pilot saw. Those people in the audience, some of them, might be the first time they ever heard about that 2017 article. Somebody in that audience heard about that and looked up that article that day because Steven Spielberg talked about it. Somebody was wondering about, they had a hearing. That type of thing starts to push forward more when you have a name like Steven Spielberg. This is the thing that I've been telling you guys forever, that it's just how we work as a society, that if one person who no one knows is talking about a particular topic, no one listens. But if Steven Spielberg is talking about it, they start to listen, even if he's saying the exact same thing and is just as credible as the guy with 3 or 4 followers or whatever it might be. In the same way that a smaller YouTube channel who talks about this stuff all the time, shows these things all the time, talks about it and breaks it down and tells the story itself, does not have the impact of a major news organization if they were covering it the same way. Even if they covered it 2 years later after the small YouTube channel did. It's just the way of the world. It's just how it happens, and it's a reason why I brought up the age of disclosure. A lot of that stuff in there, a lot of those things were all things that me, you, people covering this topic have heard of 1,000 times over. The notion that presidents were hired guns, and that they don't get a lot of the information and they're not shared things, that there's a secret UAP program, that they reverse engineering, all of that stuff. It was like brand new news to someone like a Bill Maher or whoever else too, seeing this documentary for the first time, when if they went back and watched the documentary from 3, 4, 5 years ago, they'll see the same exact thing. But because of where it was, the kind of press that it got, the push that it was getting, that's how things get noticed. So when Steven Spielberg is out there on the campaign for this movie, a summer movie, a big summer movie, when it's coming out, I bet your ass he's going to be asking things. Now, what I hope happens, I'm going to try for an interview. If I get one, who knows? I can't even get an interview with Burleson. I'm going to get an interview with Steven Spielberg, but if I try, I'm going to try to get that interview with Steven Spielberg. And I think that if it's not me, if it's, Jeremy Corbell, if it's Vetted, if it's Pavel, if it's any of these people who cover the UFO topic, I would hope that those types of channels are not only get interviews, that they're sought out by the publicists to get those interviews. If it's me, it's me. I'd love to. If I don't, I'd want to see my peers inside this space, because they're going to ask questions that maybe normally they wouldn't get the kind of coverage. But if they did from Steven Spielberg, that topic, those questions, things that some influencer that's invited to the junket is not going to ask, that Steven Spielberg might want to talk about. So that's the kind of stuff that I hope happens during the junket. I cross my fingers that happens, because he's very knowledgeable on the topic. He's paying attention to it. He's listening to it. Sure, a couple of names. I think he was talking about Lou Elizondo when he's talking about who leaked it. He knows the names. He pays attention to it. He's probably not as locked in as everyone else is, but he pays attention to what's going on, and he was inspired to do another movie. Interesting that he said he hasn't done a movie UFO over 50 years, because that is another reason why I feel like this movie is going to be a little bit more, hey, look what I think is really happening, as opposed to the fantasy side, because War of the Worlds had UFOs. They had machines and everything too, right? E.T. had UFOs in it, but he's talking about UFO movies. He's about shit that, because the Close Encounters, what people say inside of the business, inside of the community, is that's probably one of the more accurate things, because of the inside information that he was given. So it's interesting that he chose those words. Yet another question that I hope someone asks him on the junket and brings this back up. It'd be interesting to see. So what do you make of this? What do you make of the comments? Do you agree with me? Do you think that Steven Spielberg talking about this topic, getting more people aware, and having people ask more questions, that's what is so important about this? Because if he's opened the eyes of more people to see this, and then Joseph Kosinski, who's coming off of F1, an Oscar-nominated movie now, Top Gun, an Oscar-nominated movie, and then you get David Grush coupled with that, if they indeed do that movie next after this one. What I'm worried about, though, is this. I am worried about, because I do another channel, as I mentioned, with that covers just pop culture and TV and movies, and we're not living in the late 90s anymore, where Steven Spielberg movies are guaranteed to be big blockbuster summer, huge movies, right? The way Hollywood also works is, what I'm nervous about is, if it doesn't work, if it doesn't do numbers, and it doesn't turn a profit, does Apple say, you know what, maybe we don't go forward with the Kosinski movie, maybe nobody really does care about this UFO thing? Because that's possible what they do as well. So I would suggest to everyone, if you're interested and to see what he's going to do with this, and how, if he is going to bring in stuff that he's talking about, he's reading articles and his interest kind of came back up because he believes that we're not alone out there, and that idea sparked from this. Is there anything in there? I would suggest going to see it. This is a movie I will definitely be going to see in the theater. So I don't know. I want to know your thoughts. Put your thoughts in there. Let me know. Very curious. Do you think Hollywood could be the push, and Steven Spielberg advocating for this and talking about this topic more could get more people to pay attention? What say you? Put your thoughts in there. I want to know. Subscribe. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.